All right, let's talk about something that drives every developer nuts. You've built this beautiful, smooth web app, everything's perfect, and then, bam, it just freezes solid the second it has to process a big chunk of data. It is one of the most frustrating things for sure. So, today, let's dive in and uncover how to fix this, using one of JavaScript's coolest, but maybe lesser-known features.
And really, it all comes down to this one big question. You did everything right. You used async await, you followed all the best practices, and your UI still locks up. It kind of feels like you've been lied to, doesn't it? Well, don't worry. We're going to clear up that confusion once and for all.
So to really dig into this, let me introduce you to Timothy. He's a junior dev, super excited because he just finished building this awesome analytics dashboard. He's really proud of it, but there's this huge, glaring bug, and for the life of him, he can't figure out why it's happening.
Okay, so picture this. Timothy's dashboard has this really slick loading spinner. It's twirling perfectly, super smooth, 60 frames per second. But the moment the data comes back from the server, everything just dies. The spinner freezes in its tracks, the whole UI is unresponsive, you can't click anything, you can't scroll, it's just dead. And yeah, it only lasts for about 3 seconds. But let's be real. In the world of user experience, a 3-second freeze feels like an absolute eternity. It's the kind of bug that just screams broken and makes your beautiful app feel clunky and unreliable.
And this is where Timothy is just completely stumped. And I'm sure we've all been in his shoes, right? He did everything by the book. He made sure to fetch his data asynchronously, specifically so it wouldn't block the main thread. So what gives? Why is all that good work still leading to a totally frozen UI?
Well, this is where his senior engineer, Margaret, comes in. She takes one look at the code, sees the problem, and gives it a name. And honestly, this name is the key to unlocking this whole mystery. She tells him, "You fell for the async illusion." I mean, what a great line, right? It just perfectly nails that feeling of being tricked by how we think async code is supposed to work. Margaret goes on to explain that there's a huge difference between just waiting for something to happen and actively doing a bunch of heavy work.
And this is where it gets really interesting. See, when you're fetching data, that's what we call an I/O task, input-output. The main thread basically tells the browser, hey, go grab this data for me and just ping me when you're done. And then it's free. It can go off and keep that spinner animating smoothly. But parsing a giant 50 megabyte JSON file, that's a completely different beast. That is heavy-duty CPU work. The main thread itself has to sit there and chew through every single character of that text to build an object. It can't hand that job off to anyone. And while it's doing that, well, everything else grinds to a halt.
So to make this idea really stick, Margaret comes up with this fantastic analogy. She says, think of the JavaScript main thread like a very, very busy kitchen with only one chef. And this just illustrates the problem perfectly. Our main thread, that's the lone chef. A network request, that's like telling the kitchen staff to go pick up an order. The chef can keep working on other things, but that huge 50 megabyte JSON file, that's like a giant truck backing up and dumping 50,000 carrots right in the middle of the kitchen. Our poor chef has to stop everything, no new orders, no animations, nothing, and start chopping every single carrot. And while that's happening, the whole restaurant, our UI, is just frozen. So what's the solution, right? You don't make your head chef chop 50,000 carrots, no way. You hire a sous chef and you put them in a separate room just for chopping. And in the world of JavaScript, that sous chef has a name. It's a web worker. It's basically a whole other thread running in the background, ready to do all that heavy lifting without ever bothering the main thread.
Okay, so Timothy gets it, the light bulb has gone on. Now let's see how he actually puts this new sous chef to work and refactors his application. And just look at how clean this is. It's such a perfect separation of duties. The main script, main.js, its only job is to be the orchestrator now, the head chef. It kicks off the worker, it fetches the data, but instead of trying to parse that huge payload itself, it just passes the raw text off to the worker. Then the worker, worker.js, our heavy lifter, it just listens for that message, does all the hard work of parsing in the background, and then sends the finished, clean object back. The main thread never even breaks a sweat. And the result? It's magic. It's exactly what Timothy wanted all along. He hits refresh, the data comes in, and this time, that spinner just keeps on spinning, flawlessly. Not a single hiccup. The UI stays 100% responsive, all while that massive parsing job is happening completely silently in the background.
And as Margaret points out, this is the whole point. The massive data got parsed, the work got done, but the main thread barely had to lift a finger. It was totally free to do its most important job, keeping the UI fast and fluid for the user.
It successfully delegated all the heavy lifting. So what's the big takeaway here from Timothy's struggle and Margaret's wisdom? Well, it really boils down to a few key principles for making sure our apps are always super responsive.
Okay, here's what you need to remember. First, the JavaScript main thread can only do one thing at a time. It's a single-track mind. Second, async await is amazing for I/O, for waiting on network requests, but it does nothing for heavy CPU tasks like parsing. For that, you've got to hire a sous chef. You need a web worker to do the heavy lifting on a separate parallel thread. The main takeaway? Let your main thread be the orchestrator, the manager, not the one stuck in the back chopping all those carrots. That's the secret to a fast, fluid, and responsive app.
And that brings me to a final question for you. Now that you've got this chef and sous chef analogy in your head, think about your own applications. What's the heavy chopping in your code? Where are you making your main thread do all that tedious work? Maybe it's parsing huge files, or doing intense calculations, or even processing images on the fly. Finding that bottleneck, well, that's your first step to building a truly exceptional user experience.